My Guide is a podcast in English about the history of Moscow and Russian culture. This podcast can be useful for people interested in history of Moscow and Moscow guys wanting to revise already known materials. Also, if you have the intermediate level or upper intermediate level of the English language, my podcast can help you improve your English and enrich your vocabulary in a natural way just by listening to my stories. So today I'm going to talk about the Red Square. So let's start. Each Moscow street and square has its own passport. Passport number 1 was issued to Red Square. It's classified as the first grade square. It's 619 meter long and 130 meter wide. The thickness of the artificial soil layer is from 4.6 to 8.3 meters, grown in the northern direction. The Red Square appeared near the Kremlin during the reign of Ivan III. After a very destructive fire, when only the walls of the Kremlin secured its structures, or buildings inside it, Ivan III ordered to clear the area behind the walls of the Kremlin to 200 meters, from houses, yards, shops and churches, to prevent it from the risk of fires. So two squares were founded, the Manezhnaya Square and the Red Square. Since the time of Dmitry Donskoy, there was a moat along the part of the wall of the Kremlin which connected the Moskva River and its tributary Neglинная River. That's why the moat was filled with water and the Kremlin was surrounded by water like a medieval fortress. This moat was looked after properly and was even paved with bricks in the 15th century. The width of the moat was 35 meters. The depth was 13 meters. During the patronage of Elena Glinskaya, Kitai-Gorod, that was considered to be the trading quarter, was surrounded by a brick wall. This place was occupied by porters, leather dressers, blacksmiths, shoemakers, jewelers, welders, and merchants. The wall of the Kitai-Gorod surrounded the Red Square as well as several other places. It started from the corner Arsenal Tower and finished near the Beklemishevskaya Tower. The wall was provided with special tubes through which the water from the Neglинная River could flow inside the moat. Unfortunately, all the parts of the Kitai-Gorod near the Red Square, apart from the Resurrection Gate, were dismantled in the 19th century. The Red Square was originally called the Trinity Square in honor of the Trinity Cathedral standing nearby. The square was filled with stalls and also it was a place of active trading. It was called the Great Mart. The stalls were made of wood and the square was on fire for many times. It was also called Požar, that meant fire. That's why the religious place was inside the Kremlin, but behind the walls of the Kremlin there was simple secular life, or civil life. In the 17th century, the square started to be called Krasnaya, that meant beautiful, because it was gradually expanding and became more marvelous. However, this name was officially acquired by the square only in the 19th century. Also, in the 19th century, it was cobbled, and after the French invasion, the moat was filled up with the soil and stones. It made the square bigger. All the structures along the moat were dismantled. At the end of the 19th century, the square was lit with electric torches instead of oil lamps on high pillars. At the beginning of the 19th century, a railway was laid across the square used by trams. In 1930, the square went through a large-scale reconstruction. For instance, the square was paved with paving blocks, the railway was dismantled, the Church of Our Lady of Kazan, the Iberian Chapel, and the Resurrection Gate were destroyed. Monument to Minin and Pozharsky was removed closer to St. Basil's Cathedral, where it stands now. Everything was done for the sake and conveniences of military parades that took place here in the 20th century to commemorate the October Revolution. It was done to provide more space for the military vehicles. Only in 1990s, the Church of Our Lady of Kazan and the Resurrection Gate with the Iberian Chapel were restored and returned to life. Therefore, nowadays the architectural complex of the Red Square includes several structures starting from the 15th century. The oldest structure in the Red Square are the walls and the towers of the Kremlin. The Savor and St. Nicholas Towers, built in the end of the 15th century. The southern side of the Red Square is closed by the Intersection Church. It was built from 1552 and 1561 to commemorate the victory of the Russian army over the Kazan Khanate, built in 1552. In front of the cathedral is the monument to Minin and Pozharsky to commemorate the 200-year anniversary of Russian victory over Polish, Lithuanian and Swedish invaders. Built in 1818. 1637, on the initiative of Prince Pozharsky, the Church of Our Lady of Kazan was built. It was dismantled in 1930s, as I have already mentioned, and was rebuilt according to the order of Yuri Lushkov, Moscow mayor, in 1990s. Next to the monument of Minin and Pozharsky is a great cylindrical structure on a rise known as Lobnaya Place. It was built as a place for reading the statements, pronouncements in the middle of the 16th century. The History Museum, the GUM department store were built in Old Russian Revival architectural style at the end of the 19th century. The Soviet period changed the look of the Red Square. The main necropolis grew up at the Kremlin wall. After two mass graves of Red Guards who were killed in October 1917 fights, all leaders of the Soviet state and the Communist Party were buried there, with the exception of Nikita Khrushchev. The mausoleum is the compositional center of the memorial. The square today is a place for public gatherings, musical concerts and military parade, once a year on a Victory Day. There are also public demonstrations held here several times a year on various occasions. Well guys, thank you for listening to this podcast and see you soon.